Yes, Andrew. Hi, everyone. Welcome for this panel. It's very exciting to speak about tokenization in entertainment and media. For this panel, we have very diverse profile from gaming, movie industry, on-chain, and also the copy side. So maybe before we start all the questions here, each speaker can introduce himself. Dave, do you want to start?
Testing. Yeah, hi, everyone. Glad to be here. Dave Shin. I'm based in Singapore. I'm with Immutable. Previously, before Immutable, I was at Clayton, and before that, I was at Tezos. Thank you.
I am Patrice Boujol, the founder and CEO of Lumiere, which is based in Hong Kong with offices in Singapore as well. And we're essentially building Web3's answer to Netflix. We're backed by Animoca Brands, Rolling Stone. We got 5 films under our belt. If anybody's interested, we're closing our seed round right now.
Hey everyone, my name is Mabel Zhang. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of Find Satoshi Lab. Now we actually rebranded ourselves last week. It's called FSL Group, but because it's still written as Find Satoshi Lab, I'll just introduce as such. We are the studio behind Stepin, More, which is an NFT marketplace, and Gas Hero, which is a social and strategy game. Myself primarily focused on partnership and the investment side of things.
Hi, I'm Tommy Petrov, and I was creative director at Snapchat before. I was a tech creative director at Meta. Gathered some insights and got to my own startup in AI space. Gadgen is the first company that I co-founded, and now I work in Copy Insight that works on IP scoring and AI-generated content licensing for enterprise.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Lee. I'm the founder and CEO of Gallery 3. And Gallery 3 is the on-chain content tokenizer for the Web3 brands. So we are increasing the brand engagement with the community. And speaking for myself, I am the content creator as well as the entrepreneur in the Web3. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you. To start this panel discussion, maybe we can start with you, Dave, because gaming is very, tied to NFT. We had a lot of examples, and people maybe can understand a bit more there. Can you discuss with us how Immutable is advancing the digital ownership in gaming through NFTs, and why is the concept so crucial for the future of online gaming?
Sorry, last part was what is the future of online?
What is the concept of, digital ownership is so important for the future of online gaming?
Yeah, it's, to make it very simple, it's kind of like if you think about the diamond industry, right? Like there's a lot of diamonds that are blood diamonds from different mines, and I think one of the reasons why the diamond industry got very legitimized is because of the certification, right? So there's a global certification, it's all laser inscribed in every diamond, and regardless of where the diamonds are sourced from, if it has that laser inscription, it holds value. And I think this is probably the best way for me to narrate the discussion of digital ownership and why it's so important to have this on chain. When you have these ties back to an NFT, for instance, in a game where you have assets, you're able to verify and validate that a user who's spent a lot of time in a game and who owns an asset that's tied to that game, actually that asset belongs to that person. And it creates a certain level of scarcity, but also you can then generate more liquidity around that without having to go through too much in the way of verifying who owns that particular asset. So it's really important from that regard. I think it also enables us to have secondary markets for these assets, which is great for everyone. It's great for the users, it's great for the game. And so for me, I think the importance of digital ownership in games is really about verifying ownership and being able to prove that you own those assets.
Thank you very much. Patrice, NFT can link fans and audience to movies and music. And from what I understood, your company is helping to tokenize this. Could you share with the audience here how you are doing it and what is the purpose of doing it?
Yeah, I mean, NFT is a term that is, in a sense, quite new when you think about it. Like, I have one of my collaborators, Charlie Zhang, here on the first row. who, before NFT were the thing, tokenized the first film in history, essentially, in Hong Kong. Film that was nominated by Algeria for an Oscar. It was called Papicha. That was in 2019. So that was before the craze. So NFT is just a medium, it's a vehicle, a technological vehicle to ensure a certain immutability of data, a certain ownership, like David was saying. And it's a great tool when you have an industry that tends to be pretty blurry about IP, which I know Tommy is going to talk about in a minute, or about simply ownership. What do you own? You know, when you buy a DVD in whatever 1995, what do you own actually in 2024, right? Well, that is part of the solution. So in our case, for example, we see this in various phases of development. Like right now, we're in a hybrid phase. Essentially, what we do is instead of telling an audience, well, you're going to watch that film and you're going to pay $10 now, and maybe 10 years down the line, if you want to own it again, you're going to pay another $10 and another $20, etc. We give you access to this film. We give you access to the film in a way that Netflix does not give you access to, because we give you perks. We give you a privileged access. For example, it's going to be gamified, but you're going to have access to parties, premieres. You might even be in the film collectively, almost as a DAO. You're going to decide which color or which type of car The Rock is going to drive in the next Fast and Furious. You know, so you're going to have certain say on the film. Now, why am I saying it's hybrid? Because up to now, it is virtually impossible to say a security and have audiences to participate in the revenues of the film. So we're giving them perks. Now, future, fast track 5 years from now, people will be able to get those perks, and they will be able to also benefit from the revenues of the film. And I think this is where we're not stuck with NFTs. NFTs are a great medium, but we can also talk about asset-backed securities in hopefully within 3 to 5 years.
Thank you, thank you. Mabel, FSL is approaching the creation of enjoyable Web3 experience, especially through gaming. How do you plan to monetize this creation when you also ensure a fair distribution among the players and content creators?
It's a very good question, because we actually launched one of our new product called FSL ID yesterday. So I think I can start with that, and I'll explain through different product that we built. And I think people would be able to have a really good understanding of how we do that. So for FSL ID, one of the really interesting points that people are doing, it's actually quite similar to a lot of these traditional product, which is when people are interacting with our product, mostly on chain, obviously, they would get the FSL points in their account accrued. For example, for Stepin, in total we charge 6% of the 2% of service fee and 4% of royalty fee. So there we actually are not going to take any service fee for ourselves. So total 2% will be accumulated back to the user's ID, the soul-bound NFT, and then accrue that as the metadata forever. So then those people would have the points, but later on, if they wanted to exchange the points into any of the merge that we have, or even like our governance token GMT and whatnot, they can all do that. So like that's a pretty interesting example of how we very simply like reward our users and then encourage the high frequency user engagement as well as the retention. That's like one angle. The other angle is that for More, which is our NFT marketplace, it's a multi-chain NFT marketplace and primarily focused on gaming. It serves as the trading infrastructure for our own games. It also serves for other games as well. And then one thing that we do is called More Box. What is it? Is also another loyalty program, but it's a little bit different in the sense that people would be able to collect a lot of different NFT shards from those More boxes. And then later on, once they accumulate these shards, they would be able to compile 100% and try to redeem another NFT, either from ourselves or maybe from a partner of us. And that, again, incentivizes people's positive behavior reinforcement, and then also obviously would help ourselves and also promote our partners' product. And I think that's like a really interesting one. I think lastly was that for Gas Hero. Gas Hero as a social and strategy game, so like within the whole economic design, we already allow people to first of all, if they participate, and then because it's like a social game, that there's always like a structure within the work that people are progressing. So if you become the leader of your clan, of your guild, of your district, of your city, you actually get partial reward as well as the leadership rewards. So I think that's like part of the, and then how those reward comes from is also from the trading fee. So again, I think, again, it's about how you redesign and redirect the revenue stream of what you have made from your services and your product, and then back to the people who have contributed the most. I think that's kind of the primary ethos that we've been focusing on.
Thank you, thank you. Tommy, you're an expert in terms of approach of the distribution of royalties, right? So we recently saw like a rise of generative AI content. So how do you ensure and implement solutions that can tackle IP and ownership challenges?
So right now, like especially in generated AI area, there's so much happening. Every 2 weeks there is evolution. Every 2 weeks everything changes. There's certain precedent that happens in right now, the legal precedents. The case of Andy Warhol Foundation and Lynn Goldsmiths. There is case of DeviantArt against Midjourney. There's case of the monkey selfie case. All of this determines, as a precedence, determines how their generated AI area will look in the future. I don't know how exactly it will turn around, but what I do right now, I'm looking at how the landscape changes, and I see that there is an opportunity to license content with a certain legal framework. We can license content for enterprise, making this bottleneck of content creation, killing it, let's literally dissolving it. Right now there's so much on the enterprise size. I worked in those, that was my experience through that. I try to generate the perfect image. I'm generating videos and content that there's a certain reference point that you cannot show it commercially, you cannot apply it. And we figured out the certain like legal framework that can actually turn it around for a certain period of time before all those cases will happen, and will actually the market will be settled. Before that, we have this opportunity to actually help enterprise to benefit generated AI and actually create certain IPs with the help of AI. That's an interesting period of time. I wouldn't say what will happen in a year, but I want to be prepared to what will happen in a year. So the challenge is right now to set the stage for the future and upcoming legal precedents, regulations, and technology based, basically.
Interesting, thank you. Joseph, when I was looking at your company, you have an on-chain content tokenizer. Could you introduce what is it, what do you do with it, and what is, how is this aimed to enhance the interaction between digital asset owners and their assets?
So, firstly, we are 10 years old startup, like from Web 2 to Web 3. And when we face the Web 3 technology, we feel really lack of the good user experience. And we found this is because the understanding of the user and the definition of the user was not so correct. So we wanted to change the term, the user experience, into the holder experience, because the ethos of the Web3 and all the community-centered experience should be all changed. So we designed the holder experience in the new horizons by giving them the opportunity to play with. So when I speak of the asset management, so we don't do manage the assets. We only let them play with the assets by creating content and sharing the contents. And there are a lot of ways they can play and enjoy the ownership of the NFTs. So what we are doing for the Web3 brands is we are building the on-chain content tokenizers. in a form of, it could be the ID card, like digital ID card, could be the dynamic brochures, and some type of certificates, and the holder invitation to the community. This type of the all like kinds of the social proofing content can be generated by the holders and under their ownership of the NFTs and the other Web3 assets. So this is, we don't redefine the user experience or holder experience. We actually invented the concept of the holder experience. So that make us a little bit different from the other competitor in this case.
Thank you very much. Dave, could you explain the role of NFT in transforming the traditional model of royalties in the gaming industry? And how do you facilitate this with your company?
Royalties are really important to Immutable. The founders, Robbie and James, talk about this often. If you want to incentivize user-generated content, which is really important for growing user bases, whether it's in games, metaverses, or creator economies, you're going to have to figure out a way to generate and track royalties. I think that's the only way you sustain and grow digital economies, right? If there's a perpetual way for people to get paid to create. At this stage in time, I haven't seen any technology better than smart contracts to do this. Again, it ties into verifying ownership of a particular asset, but it also ties into the creation of that asset and enabling for a sustainable revenue model where they can continue to get paid to create. So we, at Immutable, we've created a platform where our smart contracts, we have royalties embedded and turned on, and we enforce those royalties. I think it's important for enforceability of the distribution of those royalties as well. So very important to the ethos of the company and the founders at Immutable.
Thank you very much. Patrice, my next question is for you. Could you elaborate a bit more on the role of the blockchain in the industry, about like how it enhances the transparency and trust in the creative production, in creating movies and music?
Yeah, no, I think that's transformational. In fact, what motivated our project was really an idea back in 2015 that the film industry was extremely opaque. It was probably one of the riskiest type of investment you could make. Don't invest in movies so far, unless you do it with us. And particularly the fact that it was nearly impossible to change. So we came to blockchain with a problem, when at the time, I remember, in 2015-16, blockchain was looking for problems to solve. So we came with a real problem, and that problem came from sustainability. So transparency can literally turn the entire industry upside down. We're not talking disrupting, we're talking about totally changing the way films are being financed. Let me tell you very quickly how it works, very quickly. Today, if you're an independent film producer, what you're doing is you got a script, which is nothing more than an architect's plan to make a movie, an idea, and you have to convince investors that this is going to be the best film ever, that it's probably going to be nominated for an Oscar or two, and earn a lot of money, and then you make the film, and then you pray that all this is going to happen. Now, people laugh, but people will laugh 5 years from now about what we do today, because what we propose is a system whereby you raise the money, engage the audiences very early on. So you don't raise 10 million right away. You test the audience first. Do they even want to watch this film? Are they involved in it? Pre-script level, we've done this. We've raised 1.4 million on a film based on an idea. Then you know you have an audience, you have a core audience. They contribute to the early seed investment in the film. At this point, you may have maybe spent 100,000, right? Not 10 million. And when it works, you trace how the money is being used all the way through end to end. Our aim is actually to go end to end from development to streaming. So at this point, you got a system that's open. People's private details are safe. We're not going to talk about ZKPs here today, but that's the idea. And essentially, you've alleviated the risk, one, of lack of transparency and misuse of the funds. Second, you've alleviated the potential risk of a big flop where you lose all your money.
Thank you very much. Mabel, what opportunities do you see in the intersection between NFT technologies and gaming for enhancing player engagement and ownership?
Can you repeat the last part? I was.
So what opportunities do you see at the intersection of NFT technologies and gaming for enhancing players' engagement and ownership?
Sure. I think, okay, I'll probably still go back to the two games that we created because that's probably like where our bread and butter is from. So I think most people in the space, they would use their PFP for their profile picture, and then I think that's it. But I think for us, like what we usually would talk about in front of people about our NFT is always oriented around the utility of those. So obviously the design of the sneakers would be a very interesting part of it, and it's like a very important part of it. But I think at the same time, people always liking and then feeling that they own, like have some form of sense of belonging to a certain sneaker because they also been using that sneaker for a long time, like walking around or jogging around or whatever. And I think similarly for the heroes, some people would have a preference of a certain lineup of, say, all of a spiritual tank support attack. I don't want to get into too much details, but then like some of them would turn that into their profile picture. But primarily also because of the utility of that NFT in the game. So I guess it's kind of a cliche that to mention this again. Like this is something that I think people started to talk about back in 2017, 18, and 19. But it is like quite interesting that in the sense that once I think people started to play the game every day and then they consume their energy and whatnot, it does actually provide a bit of stickiness, not only because of the skin, but also because of the utility they have in the game. I think another small aspect that I thought it would be interesting to mention is that kind of tap on what they've talked about in terms of the royalty, is that I think it is quite important to foster a community where people felt like they're contributing to the early growth. So what we did for Gas Hero in the early days was that we organized co-design campaign for people to design the Genesis heroes. We actually didn't create any of those. They created all of them. Most people actually don't know how to draw. They just do it through AI. And what's interesting is during the whole game, even till now, whenever there's Genesis hero trading, it's these royalties actually go to these creators, not us. So then the creators actually co-create a game with us, and then they share the part of it. I think that's also another form of ownership. Even if they don't own those NFT, they get that fair share.
Thank you, thank you. Tommy, I'm coming back to you with the generative AI content and the IP. What are the unique challenges you can see and anticipating regarding the IP, and how do you address them?
Overall, I came from Web 2, and it's important right now. I see that there is a lot of difference between how we approach things on the Web 2 side. I'm trying to figure it out what's the trend right now and how we're going to merge at once at some time. I believe that the trend is, for me, is a big vision for Copyside actually. At some point, to have an automated royalty distribution, when we learn how to score IP and what percentage of different IPs you have in the generated videos and images, you can actually say and build the whole lineage of heritage, who owns the IP. At this point, we actually can build a system that can utilize derivatives and derivative art. It can actually distribute royalties to the IP owners. That kind of a big vision and the trend that I see right now, and that's something that joins the Web 2 and Web 3 communities. At this point, on the other side, I see that there's talking to institutional investors, there's words, forbidden words, and most of the words like NFTs and Web3 and crypto are like Voldemort of like, if you don't speak it in Hogwarts, that's the same thing. We're trying to find this way of actually, build upon this breach of trust that happened like in the past and actually make those things work together. Because when we create a website, we don't say that it's built on HTTP protocol. We don't mention the technology, but we're looking for business case. We're looking for use case. And at startup, an early age startup, you're looking for product market fit. So now the trend, whatever trend is in the future, right now we're looking for application of this technology or on this idea, then we'll come to the execution on the biggest trend.
Thank you very much. Joseph, could you explain us what are the measures at Gallery you are implementing to ensure that holders have completed their ownerships and utilization over their assets?
Right. Like you mentioned before, I feel like I was picked this panel discussion for these user cases, I think. And I feel really lucky that I am sharing this stage with the Fine Satoshi Lab because we recently make a partnership with the Stapen team for their upcoming events, for their campaign for the community. So it's something like the Stapen holder can generate the dynamic brochures using their NFTs, and the on-chain and off-chain data is going to be assembled on the layout of the form of the brochures or the certificates, so they can share and so they can start selling it using their asset with the on-chain content related. This type of cooperation with the brands, and I'm going to give you one more best practice with the Axie Infinity. It happened last December with the SkyMavis team. The Axie Infinity, they are one of the largest gaming community, and they wanted to promote the new NFT collections with the new innovative way of marketing. So we developed the app for the Axie holders to generate the digital ID card using their Axies. So it was the hashtag as the My Best Axies, and during that couple of weeks, we hit over 18K of on-chain content was generated on our the app ID card generator, and it was a really big hit. So at the time, on my Twitter timeline, it was all over my best Axie ID cards from the real user from the community. So I really found this is gonna be the really good tool for the community engagement, so they can make a organic growth and organic traction, not because of the bounties, not because of the airdropping. I believe this is not a really good way to grow up the Web3 community as a loyal members of the brand. So I'd like to suggest the brand to run the campaign based on the narrative storytelling rather than the bounties or free giveaway events on on-chain content delivery with us.
Thank you very much. We just have like a few minutes left, so maybe I can ask one last question or maybe two last questions. Dave, I have a question for you about the future of gaming and the integration between NFT and blockchain technology. What are the trends you can foresee?
Gaming is the second largest vertical outside of finance now in Web3 in terms of like real monetization opportunities and user growth. I think where you find real economies online, you're going to find opportunities to integrate Web3. And we're at a stage now where crypto is not as bad of a word as it used to be like 10 years ago. I mean, we've got Bitcoin ETFs that are approved by the SEC. We've got Ethereum coming up. I just think the world is becoming a lot more accepting of digital assets. And so what we have to do for people like us, industry experts who've been in Web3 and blockchain for some time, is to continue to push and look for opportunities where we can create higher adoption, whether it's at the corporate level, institutional level, or even with retail, and not just really talking about the speculative value that people love to delve into, especially when we have such frothy markets like we do now. I think it's really important for industry experts like us to continue to hammer on the notion that utility value is really important. And that's what's taken out, in my opinion, that's what's taken us out of our current bear market into the bull market, is there's been a higher transition of people getting involved more to capture utility value than speculative value. So the future is bright. The short answer is gaming is a big part of it, and it will continue to be a big part of the wider Web3 universe.
Thank you very much. Right on time. I think it's a good conclusion for this panel. Sorry, I cannot ask you more questions for today. But thank you, Dave, Patrice, Mabel, Tommy, and Joseph for sharing your insight with